Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Authors on Mission, the podcast committed to uncovering top-tier insights and strategies employed by established experts to achieve success while inspiring authors. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission, and I'd like to welcome Jennifer Johnson, an emergency room nurse with 16 years of experience and the author of Nursing Intuition: How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career. Jennifer wrote this book during the height of COVID-19, initially as a way to process her experiences and potentially leave a legacy for her children. But what emerged was a profound exploration of how intuition serves as a critical tool for nurses in high-pressure environments. So, after an unexpected journey from traditional to self-publishing, Jennifer's story is now helping nurses across the profession reconnect with their purpose and passion. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us today on Authors on Mission podcast.
Oh my God, Danielle, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, and to all of our listeners, we are currently recording this on Nurses Day. So what a coincidence, what a wonderful one. Happy Nurses Day, Jen.
Thank you so much.
What a better way to celebrate the day than sharing your experiences through your book and with the world and all of our listeners here. So amazing stuff, really exciting.
It just works.
Yeah. I mean, first off, not only is being a nurse an incredibly challenging and rewarding experience, as I, could only imagine, but you also did this through the pandemic, which is a whole nother layer on top of it. So I was wondering if you can walk us through a little bit through that experience and how it led to your book. I was looking through some of your material, and you said it entirely broke you, which is such a devastating thing, but luckily enough, it led to this book. So if you don't mind just shining some light on that for us.
Yeah, so as we all have experienced COVID, we all have our personal experiences, and mine is just that of showing up and being at the bedside. So to give you a little bit of context, my ER, we typically see 50 to 60 people in a day. We went from seeing the 50 to 60 down to 10 to 12.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, you're filled with anxiety. You have no idea what's happening. You watch Wuhan fall, and then Italy fall, and then New York fall, and we're only an hour from New York. So, it was kind of just this huge stressor of like, what's going to happen? Who's going to get it? How's it going to go? And I think just the overwhelming anxiety of like not knowing and understanding that absolutely everybody was in the exact same spot. So having policies change from morning to noon to night, when normally policy change takes about 3 to 6 months,
right,
was deeply unsettling. And, looking back, you try to laugh now, but it was just one of those things that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Just not knowing and coming home and hoping to God that you didn't give it to your kids, to your loved ones, just was stellar. So what triggered everything was they closed daycares, and my kids were 4 and 5.5 at the time. And all of a sudden, my husband was also essential. He was actually is an infection practitioner, an infection control practitioner. So he, of course, was in hospital also and working. And so I swapped to straight nights to try and work all night and then stay up all day with the kids, and then work all night and then stay up all day with the kids. So I was left to be in a completely mentally deprived state, mixed along with all the anxiety and panic and worry and stress and all that. It was just an absolute recipe for disaster. But the smallest of silver linings was it finally put me in a place to think about, okay, if I were to die, how do I let my kids, how do you explain to kids that mom chose to continue to go to work? Because we all had the opportunity not to, but we all just chose to just show up. Nobody called in sick unless you had COVID-like symptoms. Nobody did anything extra. Everybody just did their own and got out. And so writing these, thinking about it and wanting to try to explain it to my kids, I said, okay, well, let me write down my stories. And so wrote down the couple of really good stories that I had where it was right place, right time, right me, being there for the patient. And there were a couple of those, but writing them down let loose the floodgates of then all of the traumatic things that I no longer had any sort of mental ability to hold back or push down. They came flooding up. And when I'm telling you, like, story after story after story came up of traumatic things that I hadn't processed, it was one of those things where I wrote the book in 6 weeks, at least the stories portion. I don't recall writing it. I remember getting up really, really early. I remember staying up really, really late, but I don't recall, other than a few little blips here and there of sitting at my desk of, bringing these stories back to life and going back into these scenarios and expanding on the usual 2-minute story that we tell each other and really giving it life, really putting myself back in that position, listening to all the beeps and feeling how cold it was and really getting all the senses in there was crucial in really putting myself back into the situations. And it wasn't until I was listening to a podcast by Llewellyn, who was doing online book fairs at the time, and the one author that I happened to catch, they had written Intuition at Work. And I was like, intuition at work? I'm like, I use my intuition all the time at work. And it was just such a light bulb moment where I'm going, oh my God, that's it. That's the connection through all of this, was no matter what happened, each one of these stories, there was some level of intuition being used. And that needs to be looked into. And, August of 2020 being the height of misinformation, disinformation, I was like, I don't think I could actually release this without science behind it. I think I'd be actually risking my license if I did so, and ended up doing a major deep dive into all the science in intuition. And not only is there so much science about intuition, but there's so much science about intuition in nursing specifically. So it's gone from a theoretical concept that we talk about and joke about at 3 a.m. to, no, this is science. And so, we're taught as nurses that if it's science, we're supposed to teach it and we're supposed to talk about it. So I was like, well, if this is going to be my legacy, let it be my legacy. And here we go. So that's what started everything. So for as much as COVID was by far the worst time in my life, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, say that one more time. It was the worst time of your life, but you wouldn't change it. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Based on how much you learned from it, I guess, and that this book came out of it and what you learned from intuition. Is that correct?
It's it. It's,
a statement. I was like, wait, double take.
It's one of those things where, sometimes the most traumatic and lowest points of your life, there is such a gift in the lessons that can be learned from picking yourself up and going on. And that's the book. And it helped me work through a lot of stuff that I'd never worked through and talk about it finally and explore it. And so for as much trauma that COVID caused, it, for me, leveled out a lot more.
Right. Yeah. And what's interesting is that, just looking through your book, you have just so many different ways that intuition did influence you. I mean, to get through all of this, one required a level of intuition. Like, it was your intuition to continue going to work, your intuition that, I'm doing my best here, my intuition to take care of your children, go back every day. I guess that's kind of what kept you going. It must have, that it's going to work out in the end. So I can see how that's just one aspect of it, but many others too. I mean, you mentioned that your book covers, quote, bullies, ghosts, aha moments, intuition, and death, which is kind of another funny quote there. Based on all that though, do you have a specific moment perhaps that you remember having the most profound experience with intuition, or something that stands out above others while you were going through this time?
Yeah, so probably the one that sticks out the most is the one that I didn't realize was even happening until I re-dealt with it, during COVID.
Right.
My first patient, well, not technically my first patient death, but my first patient death when I had my license was a gentleman who, every day is the same. He's admitted for pancreatitis, which is an inflammation of the liver, and he was an alcoholic, so chronic inflammation of the liver. And I went to assess him in the morning, and he just doubled over in pain after I'd done vitals. And I'm going, okay, well, that's not right. I don't think that's what's supposed to be happening. So I called the doc, and the doc kind of put me off and went to check on him again, and his vitals kept trending in the wrong direction, and he was getting sicker and sicker. And I kept calling the doc, and she kept putting me off and telling me that I'm worrying too much, and that I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing, and all these things. And it wasn't until she finally came in, saw how sick the patient was, we moved him to a different room, we started a bunch of life-saving medications, and then his heart stopped. And we were doing CPR and compressions and doing everything we could to save his life. But at the last moment, he died. And, sitting with that, thinking that it's your fault for, years. And it wasn't until I left that job that physician finally kind of pulled me aside to say, like, don't ever let anybody tell you don't know what you're doing. And without referencing that case, I knew exactly what she was talking about. And all I could think was, you've got to be absolutely kidding me. You've waited 5 years. And for me to be leaving to finally tell me this when I've been carrying this guilt about this patient this whole time. So it was one of those moments that I didn't realize that was intuition until coming back to it during COVID and looking at it through a bit of a different lens and going, oh my God, I was trusting my gut, and I did know what was going on, and I was pushing and I was advocating, but I wasn't believed, and that's what had happened. And so how do you take that and learn from it and try to let others hopefully not repeat your same mistakes?
Yeah, and I guess that's, what you did by writing it into the book, right? Hoping that others wouldn't repeat their mistakes and that they would learn from it. And that's one of the main reasons why many people write books, but clearly for you too. And in addition to sharing your side of the story for family members and your legacy. Yeah. So, that being said, how did you pull, I guess you could say, the lessons from these experiences? I'm sure there must have been some type of a process to figure out, you mentioned it took you 6 months to kind of dump down these stories, but there must have been a layer of analysis after the fact. Would I be correct in assuming?
Yeah, so going back into them and pulling and teasing them out more than just the 2-minute story to really include that whole moment was more of the process for kind of relearning everything all over again, because it's like, okay, I'm actually taking the time to put myself right back in those scenarios and sitting there and feeling those feelings again that I haven't let myself feel this whole time, and going like, oh, like I was there for that reason, and I was there for that patient. And although the outcome might not have been a good one, what did I learn? Well, I learned that pancreatitis is scary as all get out. And now when somebody comes in with pancreatitis, like, I'm extra cautious, I'm extra careful, and it makes me share this story again and again and again. Mm-hmm. And so it's one of these things where it reiterates that, there was always some sort of story. And if it wasn't just, what did I learn? It was, this is how things changed when we did XYZ. This is what medication we would have used. These are the clinical symptoms that you watch out for. And you turn the stories into learning opportunities. And it's so much easier, especially as an adult learner, to comprehend a story than just being taught at, when you get to actually talk to the person that experienced it, and you get to tease out what happened. And it's more of a conversation than just a PowerPoint or online learning.
Yeah, I get that. What's interesting is, when I was reading through your book, one thing I noticed is you seem to describe certain stories, which they are very devastating and many of them very powerful and meaningful, but a lot of them seem to come from conversations with your fellow coworkers or with the patient themselves. Like, for example, you mentioned that when the patient first comes in, you call it story time. And that's how you kind of get to know them a little bit. But then also you played a game where you would kind of guess, where you'd predict the patient's conditions. So I feel like these two kind of scenarios, they're social aspects, and it's nice to get to know them, but I guess that develops your intuition as well. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so the game portion was just me So I had left my first job where I might have seen 2 patients in 12 hours to a level 1 stroke center where I was seeing anywhere from 80 to 100 patients in 12 hours and triaging every single one of them. So you're trying to get the general story within about 5 minutes, get a set of vitals, get their history, and really you're just the sorting hat. You're just trying to figure out how sick are they in a very quick amount of time. And to keep myself interested, I would just start to guess what people were sitting there and what they were going to complain about. And I really just used it as a way to try and keep myself engaged, because sitting there for 12 hours and listening to people essentially complain is hard, and it's trying and it's exhausting. And there's even studies done that say that you really shouldn't triage for more than 6 hours at a time. So to sit there for 12, you're just like, oh my gosh, like here's another one. What are we going to do with this? And the game was just to guess originally, oh, what are they coming in with? Oh, well, maybe I see a limp. Oh, maybe they're coming in with some hip pain, or they're holding their abdomen. Okay, so it's probably stomach pain. Or, they're holding their chest. Well, that's pretty easy. That's chest pain. And it got to the point where I was getting them right. So then I'm like, okay, well, let's up the ante a little bit. Let me be a little bit more specific. Do I think it's lung pain, or do I think it's heart pain? Do I think it's, intestinal pain, or do I think it's just nausea? Just goofing off essentially to try and keep myself alert so that I didn't actually miss somebody who actually was sick. And looking back, I'm like, that actually was just me testing myself again and again and again to see if my intuition was right, and if those who I deemed as like super sick, if I was right, because then I could follow their journey through the ER and say like, hey, what happened with that person with that abdominal pain? Like, I was really concerned about them. What happened? And you could say that, oh, they actually went straight to the OR. They had a perf appy. And you're like, holy cow, that was a real perf appy, perf appendicitis.
Oh, thank you for that. Thank you, saw my face. Appreciate
and
that.
Just like what was going on with them. And so it just became one of those things where I thought I was just good at my job. And it was just experience. It just was me finding my groove and being better at differentiating sick, not sick, really sick. And it became just something to do. And looking back, it was like, oh, that was just an exercise in intuition, like 100 times in 12 hours.
Right. Well, speaking of these exercises, you were fortunate enough to experience so many moments in your life where you had to be intuitive right on the spot. And it was, in many cases, life or death. But some people might not have that opportunity. So I'm wondering, do you have any tips or advice for people for further developing their intuition?
Yeah. So we as women, we already know intuition. We know it very, very well. Any woman over the age of 12 knows this sensation. So you're walking down an alley, you hear somebody behind you, your intuition's automatically up and, oh, no, I'm going to self-preservation. I'm going to cross the street. I'm going to get to a much better lit area. I'm going to save myself. Or you're walking into a party and somebody introduces you to a friend and you're just like, ugh, immediately no. I can't with that person. I don't know what it is. They seem nice enough, but there is something about them that I just don't like. And that's just your intuition going off. So feeling it. So for me, it's usually just a heaviness in my gut, or sometimes a question or an idea that'll pop into my head, especially at triage when I'm asking question after question. I usually have a set amount of questions that I'll ask. And when something comes up where all of a sudden I'm asking a different question that's not my typical, I'm like, okay, my intuition's keying up. I got it. I'm going to go down that way. But, feel your body. We rush around so much, not just as nurses, but as busy professionals. We run around constantly. We're constantly on our phones. I'm also super guilty of this. And we forget what our body feels like. You forget how sometimes you're walking along and it's almost like you hit a wall and you're just like, wait, something's wrong in this scenario. And it takes you a minute to figure out, I don't know where I am. I'm not sure about this guy over here. I'm not sure about what I should be doing next, or if I want to take the stairs or the elevator. Just little things where you're second guessing without realizing that you're second guessing. And so taking the time to give it just 0.1 second more of consideration versus just sloughing it off is all I'm asking for. and then to trust yourself, because the Western world has very succinctly told us that we don't know what we're doing. We can't trust ourselves. So start listening to your body. We know enough that when we're hungry, we listen to that and we eat. We have to go pee, we listen to that, we gotta go pee. But start listening when your body starts screaming at you. And it might be very subtle, as just like a cramp or a heaviness in your gut, or maybe you feel like anxiety or like heaviness in your chest. Just give it a half a second and see if there's something in your immediate area that is not clicking and your brain has picked it up before you have.
Right. So kind of just trusting yourself and knowing when you get those instincts, I guess you could say, the tingles. I would describe it myself, right? Something's not right. What is it? And then I guess the next step would be to sort of investigate and figure out, okay, what exactly is it? And analyzing that intuition. Would that be correct?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, yeah. So, if you're listening today and you're interested by this and you think this could be applied and a benefit to your own life and your own careers, which I think it can for sure, regardless of what your field is, this is the perfect book to pick up and learn a little bit more about it. And also to see kind of an inside experience of what it was like inside those hospitals during COVID-19. For me, I work as a teacher, so unfortunately I didn't have to go in like you did and bear the risks and the danger. So I just have to commend you. I know that was been a lot, but thank you for sharing these insights, because now we can take a walk in your shoes.
Hey, I couldn't be a teacher, so much kudos on your end too.
Yeah, well, while you were dealing with all of that, I was dealing with kids on Zoom, so that was a whole nother.
And my kids were trying to be on Zoom, but we were JK and SK, and it was just, if we made it through O Canada, I was happy.
And you said they were in preschool, right? So that was. Yep, no, and I was a preschool teacher, so believe me, I was mainly talking to parents rather than the kids. So it was definitely interesting. Not to sidebar too much here.
No, but like so much kudos, because I can barely handle my two. So congratulations.
I guess to connect this to intuition a little bit, I mean, I think we all had to have a little bit of intuition in adapting to the circumstances back then, right? Like, how am I going to get these students engaged on Zoom? It's my instinct to figure out, are they doing this themselves? Is their parent helping them? Or they know how to click the buttons? But, same way to you in a much more drastic sense. But, I guess that's kind of related to anybody listening today. It's a skill that we can all hone in on, regardless of the situation. Yeah.
And it's not just women. Like, we all have it. It's just we as women, we trust it more because, let's be honest, our well-being is more often than not fraught with danger and opportunities for harm. So we just trust it a lot more because we've been exposed to it a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so, Jen, I'm wondering, you have this book out. I think you mentioned you have a couple others as well. I'm wondering if you wanted to share about that.
Yeah, so Nursing Power, How to Break the Stereotypes That Are Holding You Back. I thought it was done, and I even had it edited, and then I thought, you know what, it's missing stories. And so it's been on the back burner for at least a year now. I have gone back into adding more stories and adding more. So I think we're at 33,000 words. And I don't know if I feel like it's done just yet, but there's also a thriller fiction piece about a nurse who, again, has a breakdown over a patient death, falls into addiction, comes back, and then all of a sudden people start dying at the hospital, and she's not quite sure whether or not it's on purpose or not.
Okay, well, that's really powerful. And would you say, would that be a nonfiction, a fiction? Do you mind just...
Oh, fiction, thriller.
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say, that sounds like a little bit different than the intuition book. What inspired that change?
Just wanting to be creative, and writing has brought me so much joy and so much relief from trauma that it's like, okay, well, now I've found this thing that I didn't think I even loved, but I definitely did, and let me explore my joy a little bit. And for me, nonfiction is very easy to write because it's reminiscent of exams and writing for school. Yeah. So fiction is actually, it feels harder because there's more, it's not clear cut like nonfiction is. So it's taking more work, it's taking a lot more effort, it's a whole different ball game. So it's been a really fun joyride to kind of test myself to see if I have the chops to be a fiction writer.
I like that. And I like that you described it as a joyride because, that's what every writer kind of goes through, right? Experiencing what is the best method, the best styles, the best genres. And,
Yeah.
that's kind of what you had to go through. And not only that, but that joyride also, from what I understand, involved going from traditional to self-publishing too. So I'm wondering if you want to share a
Oh,
little bit about that too. I know it's a
oh,
topic.
the poor traditional publisher. So during COVID, it's August 2020. I finally got this all kind of put together. I'm like, I feel like this would carry more weight if it was traditionally published, and thinking that in the moment there was no other real options. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just apply to the traditional publishers, and you go through the rigmarole. They all want the exact same thing, but in 17 different ways. And so you can't just copy and paste your application from one to the next. Everything has to be, specific to that publisher. And not even getting that far is trying to find the publishers who are publishing the exact same thing that you're trying to sell to them, which is really hard. Mine crosses a lot of boundaries, from memoir to self-help to information and metaphysics a little, but like intuition is kind of on that border. So it crossed a lot of areas where I was like, I don't really know what to sell, like how to sell this, or what publishing house is really going to take this. So I tried to narrow it down just medical, ended up sending out easily 50, 60-ish applications, and got a couple more that, the second round that they wanted the full manuscript. So I said, perfect, here you go. It took forever for everybody to get back to me and say no, except for the one publisher who finally said, oh my gosh, we really support this. We really love it. We want to do it. Let's, we'll sign the contract and do all the things. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And feeling like I'd hit the jackpot, because we all know how rare it is for someone to get traditionally published. And granted, it wasn't with a big five or anybody like that. It was just a very small publisher out of Ohio. And I thought, oh, you know what? This is perfect. It's just a little teeny tiny one. They only do a couple of books a year. This is perfect. Waited the 2 years. We finally moved into editing. We're a couple months into editing. And then they're like, you know what? We're going to go back to physiotherapy books. We're going to give you your rights back. But, good luck. And here's what we've edited up until this point. And you can't help but feel like you've been completely dropped off a cliff. I've been telling people for 2 years that I'm going to be traditionally published, and I've been talking about it nonstop. Like, how do you recover from this? And so I gave myself a couple of days to completely mope around, and ate all the ice cream, and slept and cried and was completely miserable. And then you kind of go, okay, well, what are my other options? Well, I could do the whole application process again, wait for an acceptance. It may or may not come, potentially wait another 2 years and still get dropped again. Or you can go to self-publishing, and we can get this, rip roaring and potentially out in 6 to 9 months. So I'm like, you know what? I've had enough. I thought it was coming out this year, so it's coming out this year. We're doing it. So moved into finding an editor and figuring out that I needed a typesetter, which, I didn't even know what a typesetter was, and cover design and an author program to see if I'm missing anything with Amazon KDP, and making sure I hit the keywords and all of that kind of stuff. So it was a huge it was a huge ride again to figure out everything, but then it was all mine. Everything was me. I got to choose. Thank you. I got to choose what was happening, and the cover design, and how everything looked, and how it sounded, and all of this kind of stuff. So I was just like, you know what? Let's do this. Will I make my money back? Debatable. It is highly expensive, but I got to choose, and I am more of a control freak than I like to admit. And so having it back, having it be mine, I didn't realize that I missed it until I got it back. And I thought, oh, okay, well, this is what was supposed to happen. So let's make this happen and go and see what we can do. So, finally publishing it with Amazon. It's in Barnes and Nobles. It's on Ingram Sparks. It's there, and it's out, and people can buy it. And it's one of those things where I think the downfall of self-publishing is you're pushing so hard for so long. that it makes it feel less special when it's finally done. Like, you don't get that sigh of relief, the book mailed to you to say that it's finished. You just have to push and push and push, and it's all these different ways or steps that you didn't even realize you had to do. And so it's hard not to celebrate it as much as it needs to be celebrated, but it's something that you still need to finally sit down and go, I wrote a book and it's available everywhere. And a piece of me and a piece of my heart is out there. So trying to get to that point and to celebrate it feels harder self-publishing, but it's definitely there, and it's still 100% worth it.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that journey. I could only imagine how frustrating it was in the beginning, but you found what worked best for you at the end of the day. And I can see, like you mentioned before, it's like that roller coaster ride. You're trying to figure out, you said joyride. That's not the same thing, though.
It's still a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. Like, what is going to be the best fit for you? There's the pros and cons. Do you want to have your own personalization? Do you want, the assistance of a credible team? It goes hand in hand. Sometimes you need to find a middle ground. I mean, that's what we are here at Authors on Mission. We're kind of in the middle. Like, we allow you all the creative freedom, but then we're also, you have the name of a big publisher behind your back too. So it's a matter of finding that balance. And I am glad that it worked out for you, though. That's great. Speaking of that, do you happen to have a copy of one of the books with you?
I don't. I'm hiding in my closet away from my family, who still found me.
Yeah, I was going to say a cow made an appearance a minute ago.
The Build-A-Bear cow made an appearance, but my book can't. It is a 6x9, and it's got somebody holding up a pair of hearts in front of a sunset, and it's just probably one of the cutest photos I think I've ever seen in my life. So it's there. It's on Amazon.
Yeah. Go ahead, everybody, then, and click on over there. When I was looking through it, I was thinking that's a really pretty picture too. It's got just a heart, but then it has much more to it, when you're looking at it. So a great way to catch the eye.
Yeah, thank you.
That being said, I'm wondering, where can we get in touch with you? You mentioned the book's on Amazon, but how else can we stay up to date and know what's coming next?
Yeah, so TikTok and Instagram, I'm at ernursejenn, ernurse.jenn. On LinkedIn, which is probably where I'm the most active, is Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. You can find me at www.nursejenn.ca. And yeah, I'm here, and Amazon, the store, if you look up Jennifer A. Johnson RN, you'll find my store, which has got my book, but also a line of journals for nurses to help kind of work through a lot of the joy that COVID has left us with.
Right, definitely. So we'll have those links in the description box of this podcast today, everybody. Be sure to click on over, find out more. Like we said, intuition can really apply to us in any regard. And that's just one of Jenn's amazing books, as you've learned. So, I'm sure there's something for everybody if you go ahead and click on those links. So, Jenn, do you have any other last bits of advice that you might want to offer our audience today, be it about intuition or the writing process?
Yeah, writing's hard. Writing is very hard, and do not stress the small stuff. There are fantastic editors for a reason. Just get it down on paper first. Get it out of your head. Get it onto the paper. I personally really like voice dictation because my thoughts move a lot faster than my hands. So it allows me to get out a lot more, a lot faster. And, again, the editing process is there for a reason.
Right, definitely. So make sure you keep trying, everybody, no matter how hard it is. Be ready for that editing process. Be your authentic self. All of that wrapped together. How about intuition?
Trust your gut.
Just your gut.
Just give it that moment. Just give it that moment. If you feel like something's off, give yourself that moment to look into it just that little bit more, because you'll probably find something in your area or in your immediate area that's causing your body to react without you realizing. Your body knows so much more about what's going on than you do.
Understood. Yeah, so trust your gut and trust your instincts. It's all about intuition. And if you need a little bit of help doing so, again, go on over and click those links. Yeah, honestly, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a true pleasure learning about your story, about your background, your experiences, and of course, all of these tips on writing and intuition. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jen.
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle.
Of course, of course. And to all of our listeners, again, if you want to learn more, check out the links. And thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Authors on Mission. This conversation has been really touching. Jen, I love how you just shared about how your personal story transformed your challenging experiences from the pandemic, the publishing setbacks, to opportunities for growth and service for others. So it's exactly what we try to highlight here in Authors on Mission podcast, how expertise can be combined with purpose and create lasting impact. So everybody else, thank you for tuning in again to Authors on Mission podcast, where we empower you with the knowledge and self-assurance needed to become an expert in your own field. Until next time, keep writing your story, keep living your mission, and we'll see you next time. Have a great day.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.